All of this took place in the time span of 40 to 45 minutes at the delivery destination. Maybe more. I can't remember. It was a very long time ago. But what I do remember is every detail of this insane and whacked out family like it happened last night. I worked as a pizza delivery driver for Domino's back in 2003 to 2006. I was 21 when I first started, and to be quite honest, I actually enjoyed working there. It was simple, and I delivered pizza for about 3 years before I started working construction. The only thing hard about it was running into the occasional nutcase or delivering to a suspicious-looking house with an unconventional family. And that's exactly what this story is about. A very strange, Looney Tune, Fruit Loop fucking family. This story is so cracked out. I think there were like 5 of us working that night. It was a Thursday night in the summer of 2005, my second year working delivery, and the pizza orders were coming in hot. I can still remember how erratic one of the crew members was acting, wiping the sweat from his forehead with his apron and running around like a flea on crack. I had just got back from a short delivery up the block from the store, and there was another one ready for me. A 5-pie delivery with 4 boxes of breadsticks and 3 2-liter bottles of Coke. And it was about a 15 to 20 minute drive, depending on traffic. I loaded up the back seat with everything. I even had my own cooler with ice to keep the sodas ice cold for the customers. I made sure that block-sized Domino's sign was nice and sturdy on the roof of my Mazda, and was off to make this dough. Pun intended. I arrived at the location. It was a really tight one-way street, so I parked in their driveway. I grabbed the food first, brought it to the front door, sat the pies on the ground, rang the doorbell, and then ran back to grab the soda. As I was walking back to the door, I heard a voice coming from up above me and it said, "Yo, the fuck you want?" I looked up but saw no one, and I did hear it loud and clear, so without seeing anyone by the windows, I replied back with the only logical answer. "Domino's, I've got your food over here by the front door." I finally noticed a curtain wiggling around as if someone was hiding, and then the voice spoke again. "You got any ID on you?" I was a bit confused by the reply. I mean, I was wearing the standard Domino's pizza dress code, blue t-shirt, beige khaki pants, and that stupid Domino's pizza visor cap. In my defense, I was wearing the ID. I didn't say anything back to the voice which didn't have a face, so I just rang the doorbell again. The sound of booming footsteps walking down a flight of stairs could be heard coming from within the house. The door opened quickly like Kramer walking into Jerry Seinfeld's apartment. In front of me, standing at least 6 feet 7 inches tall, a very large and hulking white male figure wearing a wife beater, jean shorts, flip-flops, and socks with a Red Sox cap fitted to the side, stationing himself directly in front of me, almost like he was sizing me up. Asked me if I could bring the food inside because he just finished washing his hands and didn't want to get the pizza boxes wet. It was a strange request, but okay, I said. Sure, I can help with that. As I walked in, the house reeked like mold and cigarette smoke. There was an ashtray almost everywhere I turned and filled to the brim with cigarette butts. You'd think they were recycling these things. After making a few trips to the front door and back, and placing the pies, breadsticks, and soda on their cluttered kitchen table, a very tall, slim, female woman who happened to be the mom, face worn and tired, probably from years of smoking and boozing, invited me into the living room. "Hey handsome, I love a man in uniform. Come here, follow me." I followed, but I felt unnerved. "Here, have a seat by Jeffrey," she said with a cigarette loosely hanging from her lip. Jeffrey was the other son, along with Bigfoot that I met before I came in. Jeffrey was also a very large and enormous structure, young, timid. The mother told me his age at one point, I think 18, but he looked much older, balding everywhere but the sides of his head, sitting on the couch, shoulders slouched, blue tank top and shorts, barefoot, wouldn't say a word with a bizarre look in his eyes. I sat there, also quietly on the couch. Mom said she'd be right back with the money. I cordially said, "Okay, thank you. I appreciate that." All of this mildly, yet awkward shit happened within 5 to 7 minutes. Then, Dad walked into the living room. This colossal creature stood to be about 7 feet tall, I shit you not. I felt like a hobbit surrounded by 2 towering trolls, and they were going to use my body parts as toppings for their pies. This fucking guy, the father, walked into the living room wearing nothing but Fruit of the Loom underwear, sporting a toothpick with an unlit Bob Marley spliff in his right hand. Zippo lighter in the left, he sparked it up, inhaled enough smoke to cover his entire skeletal structure, and asked me if I partaked in recreational activities. I politely said, "No, sir, I do not." And then, a long, exaggerated exhale left this man's lungs, and a cloud of smoke the size of a 7-foot man's chest headed in my direction. I placed my hands in front of my face and said to myself, no way did this geriatric giant just blow a huge puff of smoke my way. What the fuck, man? I need to get out of here. Where the hell is Nancy Archer? Suddenly, the mute, Jumbo Jeffrey, sporadically stood up and began inhaling the fumes his father exhaled, sat back down, turned my way and said, "Dude, you can't waste a good blowout, man." Sorry, did I miss something here? I'm just here to deliver pizza. It never said in the job description that I had to get stoned during a delivery. Of course I didn't say that, but my mind did. Meanwhile, Pop Dukes, chilling out in his Fruit of the Looms like a king in his domain, began scratching profusely at his Johnson. I can't begin to tell you how uncomfortable I am feeling at this point. I was about to get ready and say, fuck the money, fuck the tip, I'll take a hit on this order. And then, an unexpected human being appeared. Man, this shit doesn't get any more weirder than this. A female appeared out of the blue, and she didn't look like she was a part of this puzzling charade. First, before she even appeared, I did hear 2 pairs of footsteps walking down a flight of stairs to my right. One light and one heavy. She was short, light brown hair, green eyes, 5 feet in height, petite, pale soft skin, and extremely attractive. She was wearing blue jean skin-tight booty shorts with the bottom of her butt cheeks popping out. A white top without a bra. Behind her was the first Sasquatch I met before entering this hive of inbreds, who I came to find out was named Timmy. Go figure, right? I wanted to ask if his nickname was Tiny, but I didn't want to end up with my skull in a meat grinder. I caught myself staring at this beautiful girl as she stood there by the hallway and leaned on the side of the wall. And before turning my eyes in the other direction, she batted her green eyes at me and tugged gently at her bottom lip with her pearly white perfect teeth. I felt myself beginning to sweat from the tension in the atmosphere. The deodorant began perspiring underneath my armpits and dripping down the sides of my ribcage. What in the Daisy Dukes is going on, I thought to myself as the 50-foot woman made her way back to the living room with the money for the food. Finally, I said in my mind as I let out a subtle sigh of relief. But this redneck play wasn't over just yet. The tall, glossy-eyed mom who smelled of scotch and cigarettes leaned in and faced towards me with the cash in hand, her drunken gaze grinning at me. I didn't want to stand up right away because she was literally in my face, so I reached out for the money with my right hand. She playfully tapped my hand and said, Wait, hold on a second. I have a little proposition for you, handsome, with Tiny Tim following up with, yeah, just a little something something, as he placed his hands over this girl standing in front of him, massaging her tiny shoulder blades. This is my sister, Olivia. My eyes immediately widened. Your sister? I questioned the gargantuan. Yep, my little sis. Okay, I need to take a beat, because if I continue writing this narrative in a story mode fashion, it'll end up turning into a small graphic novel. I'm just going to say the person's name and the absurd shit that came out of their mouths next. And instead of giving them all nicknames, it's going to be their name and titles from mom and dad to make this shit show go by a little faster. I'll make it interesting, but here's how the rest unfolded. Dad, hey, don't go getting any ideas, okay? Coughing while laughing. Olivia can make up her own mind. Can't you, sweetie? As he snaps the Zippo lighter open and lights up the Marley again. Olivia, looking at her father with a cocky grin. You sound like shit, and that nasty shit's gonna give you cancer one day. All of you smell like shit. Arrogantly yet confident as she began walking my way. Mom then backed away, money clutched tightly in her hand. Olivia stood in front of me, gazing at me with those beautiful green eyes. How about you and me go for a ride? That's a really nice car you got outside. Timmy jumped in. Yeah, dude, Olivia knows how to drive stick if you know what I'm saying. Olivia turned her head and snapped at her brother. Don't be fucking nasty, Turtle. Why she called him Turtle? I'll never know because I never asked. Jeffrey did mumble a few words only he could understand, but I didn't pay attention. Olivia turned back toward me. You want to teach me how to drive stick? I'm really good with my hands. As she attempted to rub my left inner thigh, but I aggressively stopped her midway. I latched onto her wrist and stood up, and finally broke out of the trance she had me in. Because despite this being a very fucked up situation, if it were under a different circumstance, I would have taken Olivia on a ride that night she'd never forget. Hey, Olivia shouted. Eyes frowned, but her demeanor changed quickly. I like it a little rough. All three besides the gimp, Jeffrey, who had been sitting beside me this entire time with his mind elsewhere, all began snickering with laughter. I'm looking down at this attractive young woman who wanted to basically fuck me instead of her mother having to pay for the food. And I calmly said to her mom, please ma'am, I really do need to get going. As much as I appreciate the offer, and I truly do, I must decline your proposal and return back to work. So that'll be... I moved away from Olivia and gave myself some space to pull out the receipt from my pocket. Mom didn't waste any time and just handed me the money. Here, take it, tips included. I counted it, and there was $90 in cash. Honestly, it could have been less, and I would have still taken it and left. I folded up the money, stashed it in my back pocket, fixed the visor on my stupid Domino's cap and said, thank you, I appreciate your hospitality. Then, as I walked past their cluttered kitchen table, I had an epiphany before leaving this labyrinth of lunacy. I grabbed the napkin off the table, pulled out a pen I had in my pocket, and wrote down my number on it for stick-driving Olivia to call me for driving lessons one day. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? So yeah, that was my experience with this family, with stick-driving Olivia. My God, I can still remember the way her brother looked at me when he said that freaking phrase. Yeah, just a little something something. It was the weirdest look. The entire thing was so freaking bizarre. And yeah, I did leave my phone number and she did call me. She called me like around 2 o'clock in the morning, I think it was. I just got home from work. Well, not at 2, but I got home from work, jumped in the shower, got on my couch, relaxed for a little bit, and then I got a call on my phone and I looked at the number. I didn't recognize the number and I said to myself, this has to be her. I mean, she seemed like a really nice girl, even behind all those theatrics at the house. I mean, what the hell was that, man? And so I questioned her. On the phone, I asked her, what was all that about? And she answered me back with, what was what? And I'm like, come on, come on. And then I stood quiet on the phone because I wanted to get an explanation from her, but she refused to answer. And instead she replied with, so you're going to come and pick me up? And I'm like, what, now? 2 o'clock in the morning? And she was like, yeah, it's still early. And I'm like, okay, I'll be there in half an hour. So I get there and she's still wearing that same skimpy little outfit. And I'm saying to myself, I mean, literally, I thought this in my head. I was like, man, I hope she doesn't smell like fucking pizza. I mean, hey, dude, you guys don't know what that house looked like, but she was a little hottie. She was small, petite. She was one of them girls that, like, kind of intimidating to look at and talk to, but hey, man, she was into me. And even while wearing that stupid, doofy Domino's uniform, man, I hated that visor cap. Man, it was so stupid. I had curly hair back then, a little hard to imagine, but I did. So she's standing there, right? Just hands in front of her waist, she was holding like a little purse in her hand. I pull up. She walks over to the car. She leans in. She says, "What's up?" I said, "What's up?" back. I leaned in to open the door for her because I'm a gentleman. And then, out of nowhere, her brother Tim, this monstrosity, comes running directly at my car, picks his sister up, puts her to the side, and jumps in my passenger seat and shuts the door. So, to make a long story short, I asked him numerous times to get out of my car, and, I didn't want nothing with this guy. And then he's like, all right, and then he starts bobbing his head, he's like looking around my car and shit, and then he asks me, so, where you taking my sister? And I said, actually, nowhere. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go home. He's like, all right, okay. Now remember, this guy is 6'7", and he is sitting in my Mazda Protege. Now it was a 4-door sport car, but this guy was and I started thinking to myself, man, this shit is not worth it. And I should have never gone there to begin with. That freaking family. Oh my God, that family. I mean, can you imagine going on a pizza delivery, right? You work for Domino's, you go on a pizza delivery, you're invited into the house to bring in the pizza. You go into the living room, you sit down, and you see a full-grown man walk out wearing nothing but Fruit of the Loom underwear, toothpick in his mouth, with a big, fat Bob Marley spliff. And when the father, when he started scratching himself, those old metal washing boards that people used to wash their clothes on, you fucking scrub? This guy was scrubbing. He wasn't scratching. He was scrubbing. So I'm like, do I really want to get involved with these people? She reminded me of Cinderella. You know what I mean? Just surrounded by a bunch of animals, dude. And I felt bad for her. I did. I felt bad for her. When her brother got out of the car, he looked at his sister, he looked down at her. He gave her this weird look, like this half grin, half like pissed off look. And, she said F you to him. And then they just, they turned around and they walked away. And when they left, I floored that car, pedal to the metal, all the way down that one-way street, and I never looked back. I'm telling you, just remembering this entire experience and talking about it now, I wonder, what if they were pimping her out? I mean, there's a lot of strange people out there. I wouldn't doubt it either. That's horrible. It's horrible to even imagine something like that. I'll never forget when she leaned in and looked at me. I'm really good with my hands. You guys have I know the story sounds funny when you hear it back, when you watch the video and stuff. It kind of sounds comical. But you guys have no clue how uncomfortable I felt the entire time I was there. Man, I was sweating bullets. Dude, sitting beside this gigantic dude. And the photo that I put in there, it's artificial intelligence, it's AI. But man, the body is almost identical. That dude was just sitting there slouched on the couch with that tank top on, dude. Just massive man, bro. Hair puffing out on the sides. He had kind of like a little spike hair going on over here. Bro, what a weird the mother. Oh my god, man. What a weird family. It was the wildest experience I ever had. Crazy. And so I decided to do a story on it. And if you enjoyed this story, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe, do all the good stuff. And if you have a scary story or a crazy experience of your own, do me a favor, email me at mrsinisterjohn@gmail.com and let's give it some life. This is what I'm going to be bringing to the channel from now on. My own crazy and scary stories, fictional stories, and your own, if you'd like. So, with this being said, I'll see you in the next one. Later.